Imagine waking up in a crumbling city. The sky is heavy with smoke, not just from the cooking fires, but from torched homes and abandoned guard towers. The sound of carts rolling over stone streets has faded. Now, it's replaced by whispers of famine, disease, and the sharp silence of fear. You're a citizen of the Yuan Dynasty, and it's the 14th century. What you don't know is that you're living through the end. Today, we'll slowly and calmly walk through what life looked like during the fall of the Yuan Dynasty. In China, no rush, just breathe, listen, and learn. This won't be a dry history lesson. Think of it more like ancient gossip, the kind passed quietly between neighbors under the breath. So sit back, relax, and let's unpack the quiet horror of a world unraveling. The Yuan Dynasty was founded in 1271 by Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan. It marked the first time China was entirely ruled by a foreign power, the Mongols. Kublai Khan moved the capital to what is now Beijing and declared himself emperor. For a while, the dynasty brought stability, trade, and cultural blending. There was silk, spices, astronomy, and foreign merchants bustling through every corridor of the empire. Marco Polo even wrote about it like it was the Vegas of the East, but underneath that sparkle, tension, lots of it. Imagine being ruled by a foreign elite who barely spoke your language and had entirely different customs. Mongol rulers sat on golden thrones, while Chinese bureaucrats ran the nitty-gritty but got little power. The class system, oh, it was brutal. The Mongols were at the top, of course. The Simus, Central Asians, and Muslims right beneath them, then the Northern Chinese, and at the bottom, Southern Chinese born and raised in the same empire, yet treated like strangers in their own land. By the early 1300s, those cracks in the imperial facade started to split wide open. First, Mother Nature threw a tantrum. From 1333 to 1337, a series of natural disasters ripped through the countryside. Rivers overflowed, droughts dried up fertile fields, and locusts devoured what little crops remained. And then, like some grim cherry on top, the Black Death made its gruesome entrance. It arrived via the Silk Road, carried in the fur of rodents and the breath of travelers. Entire villages vanished overnight. You'd go to sleep with your family and wake up to silence. That kind of silence that's too heavy, too complete. Meanwhile, the Mongol rulers were playing musical chairs with the throne. Between 1328 and 1332 alone, the empire saw 5 emperors, each new one less capable and more paranoid than the last. Corruption was out of control. Imperial edicts were ignored, bribes became the norm, and the rich hoarded grain while the poor starved. Let's say you were a farmer during this time. What did your life look like? Your once decent harvest now barely filled a sack. You've sold your ox, then your tools, then maybe even your daughter, just to buy a few bowls of rice. Bandits roam the roads, but so do desperate tax collectors. You pay in kind because there's no silver left. Your home, a wooden hut with a leaking roof and too many mouths to feed. If you lived in a city, you'd have seen the signs too. Food riots, temples turned into shelters, marketplaces thinned out, and the once efficient Mongol postal relay gone. Communication between towns was delayed or lost altogether. Even scholar officials couldn't find patrons anymore. Jobs evaporated. People whispered about omens, blood rains, two-headed calves, eclipses. These weren't just weird events. They were warnings, divine signals that the emperor had lost the mandate of heaven. And then enter the Red Turbans. They weren't just rebels. They were angry peasants, disillusioned monks, failed scholars and former soldiers, brought together by religious fervor and a whole lot of rage. The movement was inspired by the White Lotus Society, which believed in the coming of the Maitreya Buddha and the end of the current world order. Wearing red headbands, they took up arms across central and southern China, and they weren't subtle. They attacked government officials, torched Mongol outposts, and declared their own leaders. They weren't just fighting the dynasty, they were replacing it. If you lived near any rebellion hotspot, it wasn't safe. First came the Red Turbans with their radical slogans. Then came the government troops to restore order. But the order they restored usually just meant burned homes and mass arrests. There was no safe side, only degrees of danger. Fast forward to 1368. The capital, Dadu, modern-day Beijing, is in chaos. Roads are cracked. Grain shipments stopped arriving. Mongol officials are fleeing. Even the royal court has begun packing their treasures. Yuan Zhang, a former monk turned military commander, leads his troops into the city. He's not just another rebel, has organized, strategic, and ruthless. The last Yuan emperor flees north, back into Mongolia, effectively ending Mongol rule in China. But victory doesn't mean peace. For the people left in Dadu, it's eerie. The rulers are gone, but so are the systems that made life work. Currency collapses, food is rationed, temples are filled with refugees. Imagine living through that, not knowing if the next sunrise would bring stability or slaughter. Wuzhen proclaims himself emperor of the Ming Dynasty and starts purging anyone remotely loyal to the Yuan. While he rebuilds systems, agriculture, military, the memory of the collapse is fresh. And don't be fooled. The Ming Dynasty wasn't a utopia, it was strict. Zhu became paranoid. There was secret police, brutal laws, and mass cuttings, but to many, even that was better than the chaos before. If you had survived the Yuan's collapse, you would carry the trauma like an invisible cloak. Every sound might recall a raid. Every bad harvest might seem like the start of another apocalypse. So when we talk about dynasties falling, we often speak in numbers and dates, but behind every official record is someone like you. Someone who just wanted to get through the day. Now you know, living through the collapse of the Yuan dynasty wasn't about a single moment. It was a drawn-out nightmare made of hunger, fear, and whispers in the dark. Thank you for staying with me. Let this history settle gently in your mind. There's no rush to understand it all. Just rest. You're safe now.